So, we're talking ball yet again. We did a 3 rounder so far long ago that it doesn't even matter because honestly because this whole draft world has changed in the last month, maybe even in the last 2 weeks. The entire world surrounding uh the mocks and all all the different prospects going elsewhere. Layman's terms, I like football. We're talking about football. We're doing football things today. These are probably going to seem like reaches, especially toward the bottom. But what PFF grades as overall value does not matter in terms of coaching and NFL execs value as positional value, because positional value in the first round of the NFL draft is a real thing, especially in this class when we're going to look at offensive line, specifically the interior offensive line. So I don't be surprised if a guy like Tyler Booker, who everyone is mock going in the second, third round, but only the second guard taken, and I mean that in the matter of second pure guard, not tackle transitioning to guard, second pure guard. All right. I also have a list of all the NFL transactions on the other side of my monitor. So I know what teams have done what and where every team stands. Start the draft. This is no trades, mainly because I can't afford PFF Plus. So we're not doing trades. Also, it's fun. This is the first year in a long time that every NFL team owns their own first round pick, or at least a first round pick. So this will be fun. All right. Starting off heavy. Tennessee Titans. Not the PFF Plus. Yeah. Or the PFP Plus. Yeah. No, I can't afford PFF Plus. I'm broke. So, Tennessee Titans. As much as I don't like it, as much as I think they shouldn't do it, mainly because Will Howard, or not Will Howard, I was talking to someone about Will Howard earlier. Cam Ward is not the guy. This is a very, very weak quarterback class. Cam Ward is flashy, but I don't think he's structurally sound as some of the other quarterback prospects we've seen just in the last few years, or that we have next year. Next year's quarterback class is going to be fantastic. But the Titans are in a weird position. They went low and got Will Levis late, and he just hasn't done anything. They've surrounded him with a pretty decent core of players. Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears in the back. Grant, and then on the outside, he had DeAndre Hopkins, now gone. He had Calvin Ridley. He still might have Calvin Ridley. And then, Westbrook Akine, very good wide receiver. He's got a couple tight ends that he likes. And then now, as of today, signing Tyler Lockett to a 1-year, $4 million deal. Kind of a weird move for the Titans in general, going after Tyler Lockett. Especially after, I feel like earlier, they got James Porsche. They signed him to a contract. They signed Van Jefferson to a contract. Even though those guys aren't on the level of Tyler Lockett, it's still 3 wide receivers, and the only wide receiver you cut was Stanley Morgan. So I don't know what's going on in Tennessee, but obviously they're loading up the weapons. Last week was a lot of waiving players for teams to create room for these incoming rookies before training camp. It's going to be interesting. They cut a lot of defensive players, but they gained a lot of defensive players. They got Xavier Woods, they got Mike Brown, they got Lorenzo Carter, they got, there's one more I'm missing, but I have the list right here. Justin Hardy. And then, but, obviously to start off, they cut Harold Landry. And they kind of boosted. They got Sebastian Joseph too. I forgot about him. But they did some weird offensive line things. They gave Dan Moore a ridiculous amount of money at left tackle. They gave they were the team that landed Kevin Zeitler, and they got Blake Hentz in the same day, so 2 guards. They got Brandon Allen at quarterback, so that quarterback room's a little crowded. After drafting Cam Ward, because that's what they're gonna do. They're gonna draft Cam Ward, which again, I don't think it's a good decision. If I'm the Titans, this pick holds so much value based on Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, Ashton Genty, Mason Graham, Cam Ward, you will be a Titan, and it's a shitty fucking decision. Book it. It's gonna be bad. Regardless, I think the Titans should trade back. I think they should get whatever value out of this pick that they can and get some defensive help. They have no pass rush. They have no linebacker core that worth a damn. The secondary room's solid. They still have L'Jarius Sneed. They still have they now have Xavier Woods. And obviously they cut Chidobe Awuzie, who is now a Baltimore Raven, which kills me as a Bengals fan. They have Justin Hardy, who's on a cheap deal. He's a decent rotational corner. Oh no, they released him. They already released Justin Hardy. That's actually crazy. And they cut Nicholas Petit-Frere. That's weird. Yeah, never mind. I don't know what's going on in Tennessee. They're doing weird shit. Here's another weird thing they draft Cam Ward. Browns. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about Cleveland and how they're going to Cleveland. Travis Hunter is going to be a Cleveland Brown. As much as Browns fans should want Abdul Carter, they should look at an Abdul Carter and Myles Garrett edge duo and think, wow, that might be the best duo in the entire NFL. Because it would be. But the one thing the Browns don't like to do is make smart decisions. They're going to go Travis Hunter because statistically, he's best player available. And he is. If you don't like the guy, if you don't think he deserves the Heisman, whatever. He's a two-way player. He's a good two-way player. Do I think he's overrated? Absolutely. Do I still think he's fantastic? Yep. I think he's great. I think that he will be a solid receiver. Even though it says he's going to play corner, I really don't see him playing corner on this Browns team. Especially with his size, I don't see him playing corner. I view him more as he's going to be a receiver, and he's going to play that receiver 3 role behind Jerry Jeudy and... Do they still have Elijah Moore? Let me look. At the Cleveland Browns. So they got Joe Flacco. They got DeAndre Carter. Got Jerome Baker. They brought in Tevin Jenkins on a really cheap deal. And they restructured a lot of money. They got Devin Bush. They traded for Kenny Pickett. Myles Garrett got the big extension. They didn't do really anything eye-boggling. Tevin Jenkins for $3 million is an amazing deal. If you don't think it is, because it is. But what they didn't do is they didn't get another good corner. Denzel Ward has been back there pretty much alone for a long time. And they have guys. They have Greg Delpit. He's pretty good. They cut Juwan Thornhill, but he's going to be a post-June 1 release. So didn't really address safety help. And this is another team where I think, yeah, they could probably trade down, get value, and then go after a guy later in the first round like Malik Starks. Or they could get a, what's his name? If they wanted to trade really far back, they could get a... Wow, is he really rated that low on PFF? Hold on. Let me look at the safety. Wow, Eman Wari. That's crazy, because he is not that low in real life. He is a fantastic player. Yeah, if the Browns trade down to get safety help, or they could just have Travis Hunter, and they can move one of those guys around. I think they're going to go Travis Hunter. It just makes more sense. I view him better as a receiver, but he says he's going to play corner. I think either way, he'll still be good. He's got to get some bulk. I don't like how skinny he is. These receivers in the league are strong now. He's going to be playing in a division where he has to go against T. Higgins and Jamar Chase twice a year. He's going to have to go against DK Metcalf now and George Pickens twice a year. And then the Ravens, they have Zay Flowers. He's shifty. He's smaller. Hunter can defend him very well. But then they're going against a Derrick Henry-focused team, a Lamar Jackson-focused rush team, and they love their tight ends. Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews. Like, he's going to be put to work in his own division. So if you're going to want to play corner, you're going to need to get a little bit more muscle. Giants have an interesting choice now. They can go all in on Shedeur right here. But rumor around the NFL is they're not going to re-sign Kayvon Thibodeau. He hasn't been as productive as they wanted. Out of everything they've done, they signed Jameis and Russell Wilson. They got 2 quarterbacks. They got some wide receivers. They got Lil Jordan Humphrey. They got Zach Pascal. Then they bolstered up that offensive line a little bit. They got James Hudson. They got Stone Forsythe. They got Roy Robertson Harris. Wow, I kind of forgot about that. But the big signing, they got Paulson Adobo, which is fucking huge on that corner end. You're telling me the Giants, and they got Javon Holland. So you're telling me this Giants team that had one of the best front sevens of all time just doubled down on their secondary? They don't care about offense. They care about defense. This team is going to be defensively strong. So that's why, honestly, they don't have plans to re-sign Kayvon Thibodeau. They have only Dexter Lawrence for a couple more years. They traded for Brian Burns, who was listed as a inside linebacker. He's very versatile. You didn't bring back Isaiah Simmons. Why not draft Abdul Carter? Why not put him on opposite side of Kayvon Thibodeau? You move Brian Burns back. You still have Dex in the middle. And you just all around fortify this stonewall defense that you have created in 2 years. I think Abdul Carter to the Giants is the correct move. I think they wait on quarterback. There's a lot of hidden gems in quarterback when we look at, obviously, Jalen Milroe, although a lot of people like him going in the first round. Giants D-line would be disgusting. I know! It'd be so good because they're in a division. I agree, that'd be a great move. Dude, they're in a division where they're Saquon Barkley twice a year. Dak Prescott twice a year with an injured offensive line. Why not get to him quicker? You're also in a Jaden Daniels rushing attack division. This is now the time to bolster the line. Make every quarterback in that division pay. You're not running. Because what? They're going to escape outside and Brian Burns is waiting for their coming as a spy? Or they finally break through the first wall only to see Javon Headhunter Holland? Or Adebo crack through. This is a scary defense that I don't think is getting talked about enough because the offense is just so bad. You also have Tyrone Tracy for the Giants is going to be really, really good. He already is great. He's just going to get better. Plus, they drafted the corner out of Maryland 2 years ago. I forget his name. It's escaping me. He's also really good. Banks is his last name. I'm holding a pen because I talk with my hands and I point at my own screen. Yeah. Patriots. This is a pick that I follow a lot of Pats fans on Twitter because I'm a Boston Celtics fan. I get those mutuals just because. They do not want Will Campbell. Them as a collective do not want Will Campbell, and I cannot fathom why. I don't. This is a Patriots team that is plagued by their offensive line. This is also a Patriots team that has no defensive pressure. It's also a Patriots team who had a very bad run game after giving Ramondre Stevenson a very large contract. Ashton Jeanty would make sense here. They're not going to do it. Why? Because they're still paying Ramondre Stevenson. And they just signed Stephon Diggs. They also signed Harold Landry. What else did they do? I feel like I'm missing a couple things. Let's see. They gave Austin Hooper another contract. They got Morgan Moses. Veteran 3-year contract. Not bad. It's kind of team friendly. 3 years, $24 million. That's not a bad deal. They also gave Milton Williams $104 million. They gave Mac Hollins a 2-year deal. They gave Lester Cotton a deal. They cut David Andrews for some reason, though. All to turn around and sign Garrett Bradbury. They also cut Jawan Bentley, which I don't like. When you're looking at a defensive standpoint, you waived Andrew Parker Jr. because he wasn't good. But then you go ahead and cut Jawan Bentley. I thought he was okay. Regardless. They don't want Will Campbell. But after seeing how they're committed to protecting Drake May, you sign Morgan Moses, you really focus the defense this offseason. You got Milton Williams, you got Harold Landry, you got Robert Spillane from the Raiders. That's an insane thing. As well as they got Carlton Davis. The defense was addressed in free agency. Will Campbell is going to be a New England Patriot. He's going to move to guard, and he is going to sit next to Morgan Moses. And that's going to be a really strong side of that line. Jacksonville's drafting Mason Graham. I'm not explaining it. I'm not mocking it. They didn't address defensive line. That's one of their weaknesses. They don't go position player this early. They just don't. It doesn't make sense. It just I've mocked Mason Graham here the entire year. This is one that's not changing. Mason Graham will be a Jacksonville Jaguar. I think Campbell is the best pick, but I can see him trying to snag Mason Graham some. If they got Mason Graham, that's not a bad move because they still have no pressure. But if you're really going to be committed to Drake May after you just gave him an $84 million weapon in Stephon Diggs, you better protect him because you don't want to spend all that money on a weapon just for your quarterback to be on his back every other play. So that's my take on how the Patriots are trying to run things over there. Especially, you're talking about Mike Vrabel. This guy is a trench head. Mike Vrabel loves his trenches. This guy loves bolstering the line. That's what we saw in Tennessee. His defensive line was always great, and his offensive line was always great. I think I don't disagree with you. It could be a toss-up. But Will Campbell to the Patriots just makes so much sense. Put him next to Morgan Moses. You have the veteran tackle. Mason Graham's very good at positioning himself, especially with the Patriots running a very run-heavy offense last year. That gives Ramondre Stevenson less pressure to run because Will Campbell is just so shifty. I really like him going there. And then Mason Graham to the Jags. It's just best player available. You didn't have pressure. You still don't have pressure. You didn't sign anyone. I think it's a good move. And now we get to the Raiders. I don't know. I change my opinion on the Raiders every day. They did a lot. They did a lot in terms of moving around money. They signed Alex Kappa. As a Bengals fan, I hope he does well. But he's not going to be the guy that the Raiders think he is, unfortunately. He's way too injured. After losing their star safety and after losing their star linebacker, they did replace him. They did get Jeremy Chin. They got Eldon Roberts. They created a bunch of cap space with Christian Wilkins. They cut Gardner Minshew. And then they went out and they signed Raheem Mostert. They signed. They got some other here and there signings. Geno Smith got a very big extension. But they they didn't really do anything else. They got the Raheem Mostert, and him with Zamir White is gonna be a pretty nice tag team in the backfield. But they still didn't get a premier rusher. But with the Raheem Mostert signing, you got to think: do they still go Ashton Jeanty? Ashton Jeanty is generational. This guy is going to be very good for a very long time. While I want to say Ashton Jeanty still goes to Las Vegas, I think about their current situation. They have Brock Bowers as tight end. They have Jacoby Myers as wide receiver 1. They did not get a single wide receiver in free agency. I don't know how you look at that and say Tetairoa McMillan does not go to Las Vegas. You want to take pressure off Brock Bowers. You want to let him have the ability to draw more focus. Why don't you go with Tetairoa McMillan? Ashton Jeanty would be a great fit in Las Vegas. But honestly, I don't know if after signing a running back that they do it. I've been back and forth on this a lot. Half of me wants to say they do, half of me wants to say they don't. It's position player either way, though. They did sign Ian Thomas as well. They cut Jack Jones for some reason. But they haven't made a move since early April. So they're sitting on something. And I think it might be Jeanty. Analytics say it's Jeanty. Talking heads say it's Jeanty. It's probably going to be Jeanty. Do I like that it's Jeanty? No, because he's going to waste away. I want it to be McMillan, because that would open up more opportunity for Brock Bowers. You could have a better weapon for your newly traded quarterback in Geno Smith. But it's still best player available. It's still Ashton Jeanty. The Jets. Jets could do a couple things. I never know who to mock with the Jets. It always feels wrong. They did a lot money-wise. They signed, obviously, they cut Devontae. Jamie and Sherwood, he took a big amount of the money with a contract extension. Justin Fields, they got Brandon Stevens. They got Andre Sisco and Tony Adams. They're cutting Aaron Rodgers. Rashad Weaver's gone. They signed Okafor to a baby deal. Isaiah Oliver to a baby deal. Josh Myers got a deal, which is good. Getting an OSU center with Justin Fields, I think that's good. CJ Mosley's gone. Jermaine Davis is in New York. They got a couple of other position players. No one really crazy. They signed Jay Tufele from the Bengals. They brought in a lot of defensive tackles. Derek Nottie, Byron Cowart, and then they picked up the 5th-year options for all of their first-round picks in 2020. Or in 2021, excuse me. Jermaine Johnson, Garrett Wilson, and Sauce Gardner. They all got their 5th years picked up. Alan Lazard took a pay cut. And they also signed Josh Reynolds. That's a lot of wide receiver moves to make. As well as bringing in Tyler Johnson. I don't think they go wide receiver. I think this is where we kind of see the McMillan slip. But I also don't see them going quarterback. PFF says their biggest need right now is quarterback. I don't agree. I think that's here, I'm going to try to, can I zoom in just a little bit? There we go. That's better. Yeah, I don't agree with PFF saying quarterback's their biggest need. They have Justin Fields for 2 years. If anything, you wait. You draft one next year. Warren/Membu. I don't know if I like Tyler Warren here. Mainly just because I don't see them going skill position player. Their whole thing the last years, especially over the last year, but during the Aaron Rodgers parade in New York, the offensive line play was terrible. You just lost Morgan Moses, who was your arguably best lineman. You got a couple decent guys in Josh Myers and Okafor, but you didn't get a standout guy. I think this is probably this is probably Membu. Granted, you know, right tackle his whole career. When you look at the trends, that's where he's most mocked is New York. Which is crazy because if you did this before January, he was down here. And this is where we start to talk about the positional value. Do you have guys who are better available? Yeah, you have Starks, you have Nolan, you have McMillan, you have Jahade Barron, who's really, really good, and I think pairing with Sauce Gardner on a contract year, I think this is a really good idea. But then you also have, some guys who might be a better fit long term. You have a Josh Simmons who played both sides of the ball. Granted, he's coming off an ACL. But his size is great. You kind of compare that to Membu. He's shorter. Maybe not someone who you would want as an NFL tackle. But he's good. And he's 21. He's young. I think if you were taking a pure tackle, you'd trade back and you'd get Josh Simmons. Given where the Jets are in a whole new scheme behind Justin Fields, reestablishing the connection with him and Garrett Wilson, I think you go best offensive lineman available, and that is Membu, and he will be a New York Jet. Now, a lot of different options for the Panthers here. Jalen Walker is the most mocked player to Carolina. While I'm not saying that it's wrong, because I mock Jalen Walker to Carolina, is that their best fit? So let's go look at the Carolina Panthers and see what they did. Colin Granger, they signed Raheem Blackshear, so another running back. They signed Nick Scott. They signed Cade Myers, David Moore. They signed a lot of wide receivers. They also got Rico Dowdle. So this running back room is pretty clearly stocked up. They gave Andy Dalton an extension. They signed Tommy Tremble to an extension. They gave J.C. Horn the bag. They got Trevin Moherg from Las Vegas on the back end. They signed Tershawn Wharton. They signed Michael Jackson. They signed Bobby Brown. They did a lot to bolster the defensive tackle aspect of their defense, but they didn't get a rusher. And when we look at Jalen Walker, 6'2", 245, he's physical. He is insanely great. His pass rush profile, his current form are lacking from a consistent impact of the NFL. He must improve how he approaches rushing the passer. But you look at his flexibility. 249 in the slot, 300 in the box. So you're telling me this guy split snaps on the line and in the box and tripled his tackles, only had 7 missed. He had 7 missed tackles in tripling his defensive snaps. And look pass rush snaps, run defense snaps. Like, he played very well, especially against Texas. If you saw how he played against Texas, he did fantastic. Now, I'm not one to really follow the trends of okay, everyone's mocking him here. I don't like to do that. But there's a reason they like him. It's because it's the same reason they like Brian Burns. He is versatile. That's what they want. They want that versatile. They can play on or off the ball. He can be the edge that he needs at times, or he can drop back and play box. He can spy. He can do a lot of things great. But what he's not an Abdul Carter, because no one is. I love Jalen Walker to the Panthers. I think he's going to be a great fit. They're going to go quarterback, and it's not funny. They're going to go quarterback. They're going to go quarterback and just not draft a position player. Oh, my gosh. They're going to draft Shitter, and it's going to be bad. It's just going to be bad. And then we get to Chicago. Amarian Hampton doesn't go this early. He just doesn't. Chicago did a lot very well. They gave TJ Edwards an extension. They gave Kyle Gordon an extension. And of all their free agent acquisitions, they traded away Jonah Jackson, and they got Joe Thuney in back-to-back days. They got some really, really cheap defensive line and defensive secondary contracts. They got Drew Dahlman. They got Grady Jarrett. And then they went and got Jonah Jackson. Or I guess they signed an extension with him, my bad. And then they did a couple wide receiver things. They got Devin Duvernay. They got Zacchaeus. They got Travis Homer. They got Miles Boykin. Shaun Wade is now a Chicago Bear. And then, obviously, they gave out the extensions. So, they really, really, really did a good job. Chicago probably won the offseason, if I'm going to be honest. It's them or the Vikings. Oh, and there's a lot of different players who get mocked here. One thing about Chicago, though, they love them some tight end. And one thing that they love more than tight end, they love a versatile tight end. Have you seen how many tight ends go to Chicago and just thrive? I mean, we were having conversations about Cole Kmet 2 years ago. Like, is this guy going to be the next best tight end? And then obviously, he wasn't because quarterback play was terrible. But they still have Romeo. They still have DJ Moore. And you're telling me Tyler Warren played slot? He played on the line? He was an X? Not to mention, if you look at his size, 6'6", 260, yeah, he's 23. But he lined up in the backfield multiple times. I don't see why they don't. You let's say in this world they try to trade up to get Ashton Genty, he doesn't fall. Why don't you go Tyler Warren? Why don't you go get another pure catcher who can play anywhere on the field? If he's in the backfield, great. Your guy Caleb Williams is another blocker. They run him with DeAndre Swift, great lead blocker. Put him on the X, great. You can move one of your smaller wide receivers to the slot. I like Tyler Warren here. I really do. And then we go to San Francisco. I feel like they had a weird offseason. They signed Luke Farrell to a really big contract. They gave Jordan Mason some money, cut Leonard Floyd, Cut Kyle Juszczyk. Got Kevin Givens. Got Demarcus Robinson. Got Trey Brown. Malik Collins is cut. Javon Hargrave is cut. They signed Mac Jones. Cut their long snapper for a different one. Brought back Kyle Juszczyk. And then an O-lineman is suspended for 6 games. So they could go a couple different ways. And one of the ways I'm thinking is they go and get Kevin Banks. Kelvin Banks is historically a left tackle. We all know this. But he has a lower arm length and he's a bigger tackle. Why can't he play guard? Why can't he be a focal point in this 49ers rushing attack? To me, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense why he can't. I think Kelvin Banks here is great. I think they're not only getting, obviously, the next best versatile lineman, but they're getting someone who is quick on his feet. You saw how he ran in Texas. I feel like he was relatively good. Allowed 1 sack last year, 1 sack the year before that, 2 in the year before that. He played really well. I honestly think him on a Shanahan scheme of an offensive line is good. Cowboys. I think this is where the Cowboys get McMillan. You gave Tyler Smith, he has his option picked up. You traded for Joe Milton. You signed Paris Campbell. You signed Miles Sanders for running back. You signed a couple other offensive linemen. You traded for Khalil Ahem. You signed Kayvon Turpin to an extension. You signed Robert Jones. You signed Devontae Williams. You got Marquise Bell, CJ Goodwin, CJ Lamb, or CD Lamb. You freed up some money with, and then you gave a D tackle $80 million. Didn't really focus on the offense. Yeah, you got another rotational running back. You got another rotational receiver. Still have Kayvon Turpin. Or Kavontae Turpin. My fault. I mean, the consensus is wide receiver. You go and pair someone up with CJ Lamb and I keep calling him CJ Lamb, CD Lamb. You pair someone up with CD Lamb and Ferguson. Yeah, McMillan here is great value. I don't see why not. Miami needs a safety bad. Unless I think they need a safety. They really didn't do it. I don't think they did anything crazy that like sparked my interest. They signed Jackson Carman. They signed Matt Dickerson. They signed Nick Westbrook-Akine. They got Ashton Davis on a cheap deal. Elijah Campbell on a cheap deal. Zach Wilson is a Dolphin. Forgot about that. Cut Raheem Mostert. Cut Kendall Fuller. Did Teron Armstead retire? Or am I imagining that? No, he retired. Okay. So that might change how you do things. You might look at Josh Simmons here as a left tackle, right tackle option. I don't know what position he played in Miami. Armstead, I think it was left tackle. You might look at that and say, yeah, we might go Josh Simmons here. Or you look at the Safety, you just lost in Javon Holland. You cut another corner. Yeah, he played left tackle. Okay. Yeah. Dolphins. I don't know. This is a weird place for the Dolphins to be. Obviously, Malachi Starks would be great value here. Even though people don't really like him, I think he's great. He is very versatile. He's young, 21 and a half. He's quick. He's smart. He's really, really good. But then you also need to protect Tua. You have a quarterback with quarterback issues that are making headlines. It would look bad on your team if you didn't draft Josh Simmons. But then you also look at, okay, do we get a Jahadae Barron to pair with Jalen Ramsey? That's also an option they have. Had a passer rating of 34. That's insane. But they also need a guard. They need a lot of things. The Dolphins should go and get Jahadae Barron. They should go pair him next to Jalen Ramsey. That should be their goal. Colts, Tyler Warren's not available. What's the next best thing you get? Colson Loveland. It's really that simple. You go get a tight end. You haven't had a tight end in years. Go get him. Falcons are in another weird spot because I feel like they lost a lot, but they gained some. They're in an interesting position. Obviously, they went and got who did they got Mike Hughes, they got Leonard Floyd. They signed a couple lower contracts, not really worth. They got Kyle Hinton, Brandon Parker, AJ Terrell freed up some money. They got a couple other tackles. They got Jamal Agnew. And then they signed a couple of corners. But they didn't bring back Justin Simmons. And they still have Jesse Bates, but he's only under contract for a couple years. The safety point was kind of a big issue. But you also have to remember, hey, they just lost Grady Jarrett, who was one of their best pass rushers. Why don't they go and sign, or why don't they go and draft Walter Nolan? Replace Grady Jarrett. I mean, literally just poke him in the Grady Jarrett spot. Cardinals have a couple options. They spent a lot of money in free agency. They signed Baron Browning to an extension, who has kind of been a linebacker and a rusher for him. Gave Evan Brown an extension. Josh Sweat got a lot of money. Akeem Davis-Gaither got some money. Zay Jones they brought back. They signed Jacoby Brissett. Dalvin Tomlinson, he got a pretty big chunk of change. They gave Trey McBride an extension. They still didn't really address the guard problem. They got a couple. They got a rotational guard, but they didn't address the guard problem. And I think with all the teams that need guard coming up, I think they draft Tyler Booker and they get him early. You might look at Tyler Booker and say, like, oh, he's not that good. He's mocked way lower, this, that, the other. Positional value matters in this league. And you look at Tyler Booker, he didn't allow a sack. And yeah, maybe we're mocking him a little too high here. But you look at the Cardinals, and you're going to tell me that this guy who's 6'5", 325 has really, really, really great IQ. And I'm just gonna look up his 40 time for you. Tyler Booker ran a 5.38. It was the second slowest. The second slowest. Oh, is that? No, no. It was last among offensive linemen. That news has been known, but people still like him because he's so smart. You got to remember, this guy is still a Saban prospect. Here, we're just going to read this. At 6'5", nearly 330 pounds, he checks all the size boxes. He has excellent pre-snap posture, and thanks to his long arms, he can touch the ground while keeping his back flat. He has very high football intelligence. His weight is well distributed, with a minimal bad weight, good mass and power in the lower half. He could use a bit more force on his consistent basis. Yeah. He's a smart guy, and I think honestly that this is what they need. They need a big guard to protect Kyler Murray. Whatever they've been doing hasn't been working. And then we get to my team. Walter Nolen picked before, Tyler Booker the pick before. There's 3 guys who the Bengals really, really like. I just want to look something up real quick. Let me look something up. So, the Bengals have been mocking their own. They mock the draft through their app. A lot of teams do that. So the Bengals have mocked themselves to do a couple things. Mike Green, Kelvin Banks, Walter Nolen, Shamar Stewart, Mikael Williams, Derek Harmon, Jalen Walker, and Tyler Booker. Out of all those names I listed, Tyler Booker, Walter Nolen, and Kelvin Banks are all off the board. So now we need to look at the value that the Bengals really want. So Williams is a young guy. He's 20. Mikael Williams is 20 years old. He's strong, and he's long, and he puts a lot of pressure on the quarterback, and especially on the run. He's 6'5", he's 260. He's fantastic. If they go DT, they could go Derek Harmon, who's 6'5", 330. But he has a 10.7% pressure rate. That was the second highest in the entire country. Putting him next to BJ Hill would be fantastic. But what else did the Bengals do last season? Oh, they drafted 2 defensive tackles back-to-back in Chris Jenkins and then the guy from A&M, whose name is eluding me right now. What did the Bengals not do this entire draft? What did they not even do last draft? They didn't talk about the edge position. I'll go line by line with you. Everything the Cincinnati Bengals did this year. Okay. We extended a punter. We cut Sheldon Rankins. We cut Alex Kappa. We gave T. Higgins the extension. We gave Mike Gesicki an extension. We gave Cody Ford an extension. BJ Hill an extension. Jamar Chase also got the extension. Free agent signings. Tadaro Slanton. We signed Oren Burks. We gave Joseph Osai an extension. Marco Wilson an extension. Cam Sample an extension. Lucas Patrick is a new guard in Cincinnati. And then we also gave Joe Giles Harris an extension. One thing about the Bengals, they haven't drafted a linebacker in 5 years. You can look it up. The Cincinnati Bengals have not drafted a linebacker in 5 years. Who am I looking at right now? I'm looking at Jahad Campbell. You're telling me this guy played the box. He also played D-line. Yeah, he doesn't have maybe as many pass rush snaps as you would like Cincinnati to go after. But you're talking about a guy who has a lot of really, really good positives. He's a clean pass rusher. He knows how to punch the ball out. Uh, he has a low missed tackle rate, 7 and 6 for a linebacker. So 13 across 2 years, where he played almost 800 snaps the year before. That's pretty good. I mean, I like the guy. I like the Bengals to draft him. The question is, though, where is he going to play? They still have Jermaine Pratt. They still have Logan Wilson. Logan Wilson isn't going anywhere. And to a lot of Bengals fans' dismay, maybe Jermaine Pratt isn't either. I love Jahad Campbell with this pick. And that's who I'm going. Seattle. Weird amount of players that could go to Seattle, but the one thing they did, they traded away their quarterback. They traded away DK Metcalf. They cut Tyler Lockett, but they brought in Cooper Kupp. They they did a lot of interesting things. Where are the Seattle? Okay, great. They gave Drew Lock a contract. They did a lot. Yeah, Cooper Kupp got a big deal. DeMarcus Lawrence got a big deal. MVS got a deal. Ernest Jones got a contract. They signed Sam Darnold. They didn't address the offensive line again. Josh Simmons is going to go to Seattle. Clear that up nice and easy for you. Tampa Bay Buccaneers are in an interesting position. Definitely they need a linebacker. They need a lot of things on defense. They signed a couple guards, restructured a lot of contracts. Signed Sterling Shepard. They got Charlie Heck. They did a lot of just extensions. They got Hassan Reddick as a pass rusher. They signed Ben, what is that, Bredinson? And then they signed Levante David. I mean, what they didn't address really is corner. And I feel like that's kind of a decent deal for Tampa Bay is to go get a corner. And I know the video I did with my buddy, Shalem Timothy, or I just call him Trey. He mocked Will Johnson here, and I actually I really like that pick. Do they need more edge help? Yeah, probably, but Will Johnson at this pick is really good value. Best player available. While Mike Green would have been great next to Vita Vea, and obviously now Hassan Reddick, I think they're in a position to get a nice shutdown corner, and he'll be really good for them. Broncos are taking calls for this pick, so I don't know who's going to get it. Saying it is the Broncos, though, it's Amarian Hampton. It's always been Amarian Hampton. It'll never not be Amarian Hampton. The only way it's not Amarian Hampton is if Colston Loveland's there. You don't need to rethink this one. Okay. You're not going to like me for saying this, because I have friends who are Steelers fans, and they think I'm doing this because I'm trolling. I'm not. They're going to pick Jalen Milroe. And I'm not putting Jackson Dart here. I don't care what the PFF number says. I don't care what the interception says. Jackson Dart does not pass the eye test. You see this number? This one would be even lower. This one would be even lower. This guy does not impress me in the slightest. He is so... He's an industry plant. Everyone's trying to hype up all he did. Oh, look at his touchdown numbers. Look at his 29 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, a first down, a completion, like blah blah blah, or a first down and attempt. Look at all the yards. That dude doesn't know how to read a defense. He cannot survive pressure for his life. Jackson Dart was scrambling and not knowing where to put the ball. He lost games because he didn't know how to adapt to a game pressure. I'm not high on him. Steelers need a quarterback. Still haven't made a decision. They're gonna go Jalen Milroe. They got the wide receivers. They re-signed Jalen Warren. They're going to go Jalen Milroe. If not now, then they'll go Will Howard later. They will go quarterback in this draft. The Chargers. The Chargers had an interesting offseason. Los Angeles Chargers. They signed Trey Lance, signed Tony Jefferson, signed Tyler Conklin, got Mekhi Becton on a really good deal. Got a couple brought back Mike Williams on a cheap deal. Brought in Jalen Reagor on a cheap deal. Got Najee Harris, so they got a running back. Cut Gus Edwards, cut Joey Bosa, signed an extension with Elijah Molden, got T.R. Tart. They did pretty well being on a pretty constricted budget. I just don't like their pickups at wide receiver. I will take Emeka Egbuka to be the second wide receiver in this draft, i.e. the first non-Tetairoa McMillan wide receiver. And obviously Packers needed a wide receiver. They would probably look at that draft board and be like, we thought we were going to get Egbuka. They were going to go Luther Burden. I'm not high on Luther Burden. I think he's really small. I also don't like Burden in terms of versatility. Emeka Egbuka is more versatile than Luther Burden is, and which is why I think he'll do better in a Jim Harbaugh offense. They lost more of their rushing identity. They hadn't re-signed J.K. Dobbins. They cut Gus Edwards. But they got Najee. So I definitely think that Egbuka will be more of a slot and halfback kind of guy. But he'll still primarily be a pass catcher. But he can line up anywhere. This is where Luther Burden goes, and he's going to go to the Packers. He's going to be that opposite guy to Christian Watson. Obviously, his size is concerning. He's great, but in a realm where the Chargers are kind of a more run-first identity, they're going to want a bigger guy like Egbuka, who was a great run blocker at Ohio State. Vikings really need a running back. I don't like any of the other running backs here for them. So one I really do like for the Vikings is Starks. I think here this is really good value. I like Kenneth Grant here for them. They went and got some free agent tackles. They did a lot this free agency. They gave Aaron Jones an extension. They signed Isaiah Rodgers. They signed Ryan Kelly. They got Bubba Bolden. They got Byron Murphy, Jonathan Allen. They got Will Fries from the Colts. They got Javon Hargrave. They restructured Harrison Smith's contract. They traded for Jordan Mason. Forgot about that. I really forgot about that. They gave Jeff Okudah they got Jeff Okudah. And then they got a couple they got a couple wide receivers. But they didn't really focus on the back half. Like Byron Murphy. They gave him a really big contract, which I like. They gave Byron Murphy a really big extension, but they didn't really address safety. And maybe they won't. And maybe they're going to be fine with the vets, but if you're going to want to really attack this pass rush in a division where you're going up against a dynamic Lions team, you're going up against a very mobile quarterback with Caleb Williams in Chicago, and then you have Jordan Love, who's also a mobile quarterback who also has Josh Jacobs. I mean, I think Kenneth Grant here is a really good pick. You get a run stopper, and that's kind of, and he's good. He's really good. I really like this for them. Texans wide receiver, O-line, they need both those things bad. I want to kind of look at their things real quick. I want to look at their transactions that they did in this offseason. Signed Irv Smith. Signed Jalen Petrie. Signed Trent Brown. Gave Danielle Hunter an extension. They signed Cam Robinson. Good. They did pretty well on the tackle aspect of everything. They got Ed Ingram. Traded Shaq Mason, I thought. Yeah, they traded Shaq Mason. Got Laken Tomlinson. Got a lot of little contracts. Traded for Christian Kirk. I mean, they did pretty well. I think it's kind of a what value do you hold here? Obviously, you look at the edge rusher still available. Mike Green's still available. But then you see Greg Zabel, Josh Connerly are also available. And I think a lot of these edges are really going to go in this area more than they are in this area like people think they are because of positional value. For the Texans, I honestly see them going an edge. They could. But, you still have Will Anderson. You still have Danielle Hunter. They could go Matthew Golden. That's probably a decent place for him here. Is this 25 slot? He's really quick. He is shorter and scrawnier, but next to Nico Collins and Christian Kirk, I think he would do very well. Yeah, I really like Matthew Golden here. Greg Zabel would also be a really good choice here, given that Greg Zabel is probably going to be more in the guard realm of things. He's everything but elite arm length. He's good, but I think he kind of sits. He'll probably end up going here to the Rams, but I think Matthew Golden's going to go to the Texans. And then, like I just said, Rams are really in an iffy spot. Lost Cooper Kupp, really committed on Puka Nacua. Got Devontae Adams. Rushing game, it looks really good. They signed some defensive free agents. Their rookie class last year was astonishing. So I think really just bolstering the Stafford protection is going to be key here. And then, we're at the bottom 6. And I think this is where we get to see a lot of players who have kind of trickled down the line get to play. Ravens are going to immediately look at Ezeraku and take him because they really like Ezeraku. The Lions are going to see Mike Green and immediately take him. These are no-brainer picks for either team. The Ravens are very, very high on Donovan Ezeraku. Washington needs something better on the defensive line. And this is where Nick Scorton comes into play. That's all I'm going to say. They need a disruptor. And that's exactly what Nick Scorton is. These guys are more headhunters. They'll get after the quarterback. Scorton is a disruptor. You look at the numbers, Hurry's 32-21. Fantastic. 26-20. Yeah, these are all disruptors. These guys have the sack total. He doesn't, because he is a pure disruptor. So I think that's why they're going to go before Scorton. But Scorton, in my opinion, is the best disruptor of the 3. And that's what Washington needs. So the Bills see 3 edges go. They're like, hey, we really, really need an edge. That's kind of that's the place where we're at. They're gonna look at Shamar Stewart. I know it's two Texas A&M edges back to back. James Pierce is having really, really bad personality concerns. And I think Shamar Stewart's going to go over that. You'll get to the Chiefs, who have had offensive line problems the entirety of last year. That's why they lost the Super Bowl. They're going to look at Josh Connerly and go ahead and take him. And then the Eagles. Seems like pass rusher is what they're thinking. They lost Josh Sweat. They lost a lot of veterans. Keep an eye on Omar Norman Lott, by the way. He's going to be a day 2 pick, and he's going to be a great day 2 pick. I'm going to mock that Starks falls out of the first round. People are... he'll probably fit in elsewhere where I was kind of iffy around this. From the Dolphins, he'll probably be somewhere around here. I just don't like him in that position. They're going to get James Pierce. That's how we're going to end it out. This is how I am mocking the first round of the NFL draft. Here, I'll zoom out. Right there. This is how I'm going to mock. Thank you all so much for watching. This will be immediately uploaded to YouTube. And hope you guys have a great day.